The Future of Teen Library Services, compiled on August 5th, 2025 by Leah, Bethany, Sage, Alexandra, Sarah, and Madison for summer 2025's Information Science 261A taught by Professor Velasquez at San Jose State University. Here's a brief agenda of what we'll be covering over the course of this video. First, we'll be providing some foundational background information and an introduction, highlighting where teens already exist, how we can reach them, and why this is important. Followed by our main points, each presenter will cover accessibility in libraries, teen service policies and flexibility, physical need of teen spaces, programs including the teen advisory boards, how we can measure program success, and some final concluding thoughts. For this project, we were tasked with a hypothetical public library, each of us teen service librarians advocating for a system distinct from children's services. This is not an issue discussed in a void, as similar trends are on the rise in teen services across the library science field, often in result of a negative portrayal of teenagers since the 1930s. In practice, it's important to define the user group and recognize the information need of these prospective patrons. Yet, presently, there is a disconnect between what teens need and what services are being offered, often resulting in underattended programs and underutilized services. Studies suggest the group who uses public libraries the least are teenagers, despite the creation of specific spaces for them and careful thought given to activities and resources likely to appeal. It's easy to provide children and adult services, as libraries have been doing it forever, but this is often at the detriment of patrons who not only have unique needs, but may be adverse to using library services in the future because of this. Instead, goals for teen library services should align with the transition from children's services to adult, based on unique educational, informational, cultural, and leisure needs. Throughout this presentation, we will be using citations with different resources, studies, and examples regarding teen services and emphasize how our library can improve its offerings to current and future young adults. To expand on these goals, teen library services should support, empower, and connect young people through access to information, resources, and community regardless of race, religion, cultural background, or intellectual and physical abilities. But what happens if we don't provide teens with targeted library services? Information gaps that impact all groups may widen, contributing to educational inequality. Without access to unique resources, teens can also experience less emotional, social, and intellectual growth than groups who do. But more importantly is the concern about retainment. Without a good understanding of library offerings or severing a connection with teens before they reach adulthood, removing teen services can negatively impact overall community engagement. Conversely, offering teen library services promotes academic success by making information resources more accessible, provide inclusive third spaces outside of home and school to exist in, and fosters long-term civic involvement throughout adulthood. One study argues that libraries should more purposely involve teens, not just as users, but as active contributors in design and service creation. Another study suggests that young people are far from passive library users. They blend analog and digital media habits, identify in multiple overlapping ways, and rely on libraries not just for books, but for discovery, community, and content exploration. The natural next question is, where are these teens? It can be effective to offer more of what's already working, in addition to replicating the programs that teens already attend, such as the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, and teen led after school organizations. Libraries remain vital community hubs, even for media saturated younger generations, by offering physical, social, and exploratory spaces that can complement online life. A book by Jess Snow offers many ways to form relationships with existing effective teen services, specifically by using professional outreach with programs like fostering group homes, residential facilities, juvenile detention centers, alternative schools like charter and homeschools, and existing organizations that work with different marginalized groups. More likely than not, these teens may be in need of library services. Additionally, discussion with many teen librarians have revealed that getting children to continue their involvement as they mature has been an effective way at maintaining their attendance. More importantly, continuing to advertise in spaces teen exists, such as online spaces, can improve awareness throughout a teen's patronage. This can further reach into adulthood and so on. Outreach is more than just getting teens into your existing spaces and programs. It's about involving the user group in the decision making process, even providing a leadership role as they experiment with their identities and interests. Additionally, having a variety of options helps young adults navigate their teen years and transition to adulthood. What works one year may not be true the next. Collections should reflect the special interests expressed by the population, which can be tallied by observing what's being checked out the most or what discourse is happening online where teens frequently exist. Snow outlines the goals of outreach services for teens in libraries thusly: 1. Utilize and foster unique technologies and skills. 2. Emphasize partnership so teens can freely grow through trial and error. And 3. Your program must be flexible, adaptable, and modifiable. Because community colleges serve patrons at the tail end of their teen years and, more specifically, those most impacted by economic wealth disparities, many throughout California have relationships with basic needs centers and impacted incarcerated communities. They act as a clear example to how outreach programs and resource services can lead individuals to academic and personal success.
Accessibility should always be a concern for the library, including for teens. However, this accessibility will not be achieved without effort, and so we must be active and thoughtful in the services and spaces we provide to teens. First, we will discuss the barriers teens may face when attempting to use the library and teen space. Then, we will discuss ways to adapt our services to cater to the teen and to foster an accessible environment for them. It is important to discuss the barriers teens will face while using the library because it will lend insight into why teens are not effectively and numerously using the space. Then, from these issues, we can create ways to remove these barriers and in turn make the library an accessible space that teens will want to use and spend time in. First, let's discuss the general perception and stigma surrounding teens, as this may influence the way we interact with teens, including affecting our decisions over providing services to teens. When teens enter public spaces, including libraries, they can often be viewed as disruptive, disrespectful, or mischievous. Teens tend to occupy space differently than adults in ways that adults may interpret as rude, such as kicking their feet up on furniture or laying on the ground. Beyond the library, one study found that adults view teens as disrespectful and lacking in positive traits and skills. These biases, either knowingly or unknowingly held, may cause our staff to treat teens differently and even contribute to our staff creating an unwelcoming space. As for staffing in the institution, teens will encounter systematic barriers that will affect their ability to not only use a teen space and services, but also for these services to exist in the first place. Some issues, as noted by Velasquez, include lack of institutional support because of past failures and staff biases. Teen services also suffer from a lack of dedicated funding, as donors tend to favor children and seniors over teens. These factors are out of the control of teens, but affect their ability to receive services. Also, on a more personal level, staff can feel reluctant to assist teens because of the aforementioned perceptions of teens, or also a lack of understanding in how to interact with teens. A seemingly easy and beneficial solution to still provide services for teens is to combine with children's services and create a general youth services. However, by combining, we will essentially push the teens out of the library and services. Common use services follow a storytime model in which librarians will lead activities and the children depend on the librarian for the activity. This will be discussed more thoroughly in our programming section. However, this model will contribute to accessibility issues for the teens. With rigid activities like in the storytime model, teens may struggle to attend with their already busy schedules. More so, what activities are offered will not be catered to the teens' age group or interests, as we also will be balancing activities for the younger children. It is also important to note that when a centralized approach fails, one may view this as lack of teen interest in the library. However, this is the result of a failure to provide accessible and worthwhile services and programs to the teens. Now, how are some ways we can make the library more accessible to teens? With teen accessibility specifically in mind, we will focus on shifting perceptions, working within the institution for staffing and policy change, and focus on individualized teen services. First, all staff should work to shift their perception of teens. Staff should remind themselves that teens are more than students or pre-adults and deserve to be treated as such. Also, adolescence is a distinct phase of life, not just a step towards adulthood. With this, teens will have their own development needs and actions. So, next time a teen enters a library and they may have their legs stretched out on the desk or they're animatedly conversing with their friends, we should recognize this as typical behaviors for teens and not assign judgment to these actions. When we allow teens to exist in the spaces they feel fit, it will create a comfortable and welcoming environment for them. As we are telling staff to be mindful of teens and their behaviors, we need to support that with staffing and procedural changes. Most importantly, we will need librarians and staff that are solely responsible for our teen division. This will be discussed further later in the presentation, but dedicated staff can create personal relationships with teens that will foster better programs and services. However, the support does not end with the dedicated teen staff. We will also need all staff, regardless of position or division, to change the way they interact with teens. Ways we can accomplish this is by understanding that teens may be confused or uncomfortable when using the library and asking for assistance, and staff should look out for this. Then we will encourage all staff to build their soft skills, such as customer service, to encourage a positive and welcoming atmosphere. The institution must also recognize where they may have dismissed teens. Instead of using this as a way to cut down the teen center, we should recognize it as issues teen centers face across all libraries and try to rectify it. This may include revamping our donor strategies and putting more effort into getting donors to support teens. Teen services need to not only be separate from children's services, but also individualized and tailored to the teen. Importantly, Velasquez notes that teens are distinctly different across age groups and even neighborhoods. Something that may work and be enjoyable for one group of teens does not necessarily work for another group of teens. A solution to this is to allow teens to lead their own activities. Instead of forcing a youth-wide activity upon teens, we will allow teens to follow their interests, creating activities that excite them. Once again, more specific ways to increase teen engagement within programming will be discussed later. However, by creating flexibility within our programming, we will limit barriers such as scheduling and resources. Teens will find it easier to engage in our activities when they are tailored to their interests and availability. Teens will face accessibility barriers because of society's perception of them, current institutional policy and staffing, and issues within the services themselves. Some changes we want to focus on is training with our staff to shift their perception of teens and build skills to assist them better. We will also be asking for institutional assistance in reorganizing our staffing and service structure. Since accessibility is so fundamental to the success of a teen space and a library as a whole, this will be a common theme throughout the presentation, with more changes we would like to make to our current teen services. Beyond accessibility, we also want to provide spaces and programming that teens not only have access to, but thoroughly enjoy and want to keep returning to the library for.
In our library, there is a dedicated teen space. However, teens do not use it. Instead, families with older children are largely seen utilizing the teen space. To change this and help encourage teens to use this space, we want to propose implementing an age restriction policy, as well as recommend evaluating the physical space and making updates to meet current teen needs and interests. One reason teens may not use the teen space is because it is mostly populated by adults and older children, which can contribute to teens feeling uncomfortable and reluctant to use the space. Ornstein and Reed found in their 2022 study that having a space just for teens gives them a sense of ownership and belonging. Children and adults each have their own space within the library, so it is only fair to provide the same service to teens. To ensure the teen space is only for teens, we highly recommend adding an age restriction policy that allows only 13 to 18-year-olds to use the space. Adults and older children should only be in the space for brief periods of time to browse the collection. It is important that staff regularly enforce this policy. Ornstein and Reed studied 3 libraries with successful teen programs: the Lava and Teo Trenton Libraries in Sweden and the Tompkins County Public Library in the United States. Each of these libraries ensured only teens used their teen areas. with the Teo Trenton Library even creating a physical adult border at the entrance to show that the space is only for teens. The Tompkins County Public Library even found that by adding a dedicated teen space, their program attendance tripled. These examples show that creating a teen-only space can have a positive impact. To ensure the teen space meets current teen needs and interests, the space should be regularly evaluated for improvement. Interests change over time, so it is important to reevaluate spaces to make sure they are still relevant and meet patron needs. Based on successfully established teen spaces as well as scholarly research, we recommend evaluating the teen space and focusing on the space's flexibility, seating, technology, and appeal. Within the next couple of slides, we will take a closer look at each of these areas. Flexibility is an important aspect for any space. Patron needs evolve over time, and flexible spaces are easier to manipulate and readjust to changing needs. For teen spaces, Kuhlman et al. Found in their 2014 study that teens appreciate flexible furniture that allows for a teen space to be used for multiple purposes. Additionally, Augusto et al. Found in their 2015 study that there is a need for a multi-purpose teen space that can accommodate both group and individual use. When evaluating the library's teen space, we recommend keeping in mind the following questions. Are the tables and chairs movable? Can teens move furniture to work alone or in groups? Can items be moved to accommodate different programs? If the space is not flexible, we recommend either purchasing movable furniture if it is within budgetary means, or if not, checking to see if current furniture can be modified, such as adding wheels to larger tables or adding skid pads under large chairs and couches to make them easier to move. Book carts are another great option that can be used to store materials in the teen area, and they are easy to move around. By investing in creating a flexible space, the library will be able to accommodate the different and evolving needs of teens.
Flexible seating options greatly enhance any teen space. As you can see from the first image, flexible seating includes seats that can be pushed together for group activities or pulled apart to support individual use. This type of dynamic seating is important for really maximizing a space so that it supports as many activities as possible, including group work, individual reading, as well as clubs and activities, all within a single space and using single type of furniture option. Dynamic seating is economical and efficient. Additionally, dynamic seating reduces the library's role as the police over young people's bodies. As Bernier and Males 2014 writes, libraries create space in which youth are told no for doing or wanting things entirely appropriate for young people, such as sitting convivially in small groups or adopting a greater variety of seating postures than conventional furniture allows, and then enforce one to a chair policies and related postural edicts. By providing dynamic seating options, a library supports teens to sit and use the space the way they feel comfortable, enhancing ownership and individuality. Bernier and Males also found that group seating options such as benches, couches, and sofas are more popular among teen users and are found to be more inviting. Lastly, Kohlman et al.'s 2014 study found that how appealing furniture was to teens directly influenced how likely they were to use other library material and services. For this reason, dynamic furniture and seating options should not be overlooked as part of our renovation to the teen service program. Ensuring that technology is available within the teen space and that its use is reserved for teens is vital to the success of the space as a whole. Kohlman et al. 2014 found that access to technology was one of the most frequently and enthusiastic mentioned themes by both librarians and teens. Computers were used for both academic and leisure activities. Additionally, flexibility in types of computers, such as laptops, which are mobile, would further increase use and user satisfaction. By including technology within the teen space and ensuring that its use is reserved for teens, the library is sending the implicit message that teens are important to the library and that this space is for them and for them to explore information however they find most helpful, including for leisure and academic purposes. The background of the slide is an image from Warren Public Library's teen space, which was newly renovated to include a multimedia room, which includes games, films, DVDs, CDs, and a flat screen television, which they use to host events such as Family Superhero Movie Night, which has greatly increased use of the teen area. Closed 2023 wrote that more teens have been using the space more frequently since the inclusion of the multimedia space. This is a great example of how including technology within a teen space can increase attendance and use of the space. Lastly, including technology in a teen space provides a service to bridge the digital divide. When computers are reserved for the use of teens, it invites teens to use these technologies for their own purposes, where they might not have the freedom to do this anywhere else in their life. At home, they might have to share technology with family and have limited time to use a computer. And at school, computers are often reserved for academic purposes. This is why it's important for libraries to provide computers and technology to teens so that they can access information as freely as other people can who have their own computers and technology. Velasquez, 2015, writes, providing technology supports teens' freedom to read and access to information, which is what libraries are all about. When redesigning the teen space, it will be important to ensure that teens maintain ownership over the space so that they feel as though the space is theirs to do with what they please and to meet all of their needs. Ensuring ownership requires what Betch Peterson 2020 calls participatory design or co-creation, where the stakeholders are involved in the design process and all design decisions. This means bringing teens into the decision-making of redesigning the teen space, whether that's through the TAB or reaching out through a survey, but actually not just asking for the teens' opinions, but actually using those opinions to make the design decisions. We're not asking for counseling or asking for their actual input into how their teen space will be designed. In regard to how the teen space should be decorated, Lee et al.'s 2023 was bland and boring. Design with a few pops of color would make the space feel light and welcoming while not be overwhelming with the design. When designing the teen space, the focus should be on how the space can be used to support as many activities as possible, rather than on aesthetics, trends, and other less important aspects of a teen space. Velasquez 2015 points out that when it comes to design, functionality is the most important part of a teen space. For this reason, we propose a simple design that is versatile and appealing. To revitalize the teen space, we propose several changes. One is to impose an age restriction for the use of dynamic furnishings. We will make the space flexible to support a variety of activities, both leisure and academic. We will provide technology specifically for teens and implement a simple, colorful design. These changes are supported by the current research as well as the success of other public libraries' teen spaces. These changes will ensure that our teen space is created by teens for teens to meet their information and developmental needs.
Hi, friends. So, this is Leah Choli. We're going to transition from discussing space into discussing our programming. This first part will focus on the current issues with our teen programming. And then we'll move into specifically how we can kind of revise our teen advisory board so that its mission, its purpose, and its process are a little bit more aligned to current best practices. So let's start with our current programming challenges. So we're kind of facing a little bit of a threat to combine our teen services with our children's services. Currently, we do have some low teen attendance of our teen patrons, but we're going to discuss later to why we really think that should not happen and why the teen services should stay teen services. We have some concerns with tweens rather than teens attending our programming as it currently stands. So, this is probably an indicator that our current programming is not reflecting what teens want or need. And from our perspective, the perception that attendance by teens is low is due to busyness and teens having what they need at home. We will dig into that a little deeper later, but for right now, we're just going to state that we feel that this is inaccurate. And just the limitations of our teen advisory board. Administration currently has to approve both the ideas of the teen librarian and of the teen advisory board. So it makes getting some programming that teens really want into action a little bit cumbersome. So we will talk about how to address these next. Okay, so our board kind of dug into some research, and I'm going to discuss why our current approach to programming isn't working. Right now, we are not really having a comprehensive understanding of adolescent development. Teens are a really unique age group, they have their own needs and capabilities. And one of those things that's really important is choice and voice for teens. So they really should be having more of a say in our programming development. Right now, the librarian selects, creates, and implements all of the programming. So we want to integrate our teens a little bit more. We also know that teens really need to have a sense of autonomy. Sometimes when adults are doing all of the programming for them, it can feel a little bit like school, and that can actually lower the attendance of our program. So we want them to have a little bit more freedom within our programming design and space. And we're going to talk about the Teen Advisory Board a lot. There's a little bit of a problem with the term advisory, and it reflects exactly what it is. They can suggest or recommend programming, but they need to have a say in planning and implementing the programming. So let's talk a little bit more about our next topic. All right, onward and upward to teen wants and needs. Biggest thing is going to be a sense of value, that they add something to the table, a feeling that they're respected, especially by the adults. They really need trustworthy adults who respect them, a sense of ownership and belonging. So, in our redesign, of our Teen Advisory Board, we want to create a little bit more of these values here. So in order to facilitate the shift in our library reflecting some of those really important teen values means kind of redefining our role of our teen librarian. Right now, they're doing so much. They are coming up with ideas for programming. They're planning them. They're implementing them. They're getting feedback on it in this lovely feedback loop with a lot of effort to drive in teen attendance. But we're going to shift that role so that the librarian is instead an advocate who's asking teens, hey, what are we going to do this week? And making sure that it happens, getting them the right materials, space, getting them on the calendar, advocating that they have access to space to do the programming as well, instead of kind of being the lead person on planning and implementing. And we're going to shift our staff mindset to providing just excellent customer service for our teens as we would for any other patron. So, kind of minimizing our fear of teens. Now, we might get a little caught up on attendance numbers and things that are super quantifiable, but we want to shift our mindset to valuing the process of implementing programming. And this is going to come from teens, again, really kind of doing the heavy lifting. That makes it great for us. So it should be ever changing. It should be changing according to kind of what our teens' wants and needs are, especially as our community develops, as our community changes. And just kind of remember the why of teen programming. We want them to participate, own, and develop themselves, and in turn develop the program. So it is wonderful for years and years and years to come. We want them to really have the experience of planning the programs because that experience is actually more rich than the programs themselves for our teen leader. So we're going to change up our planning model so that teens are involved with the planning process and the actual decision making before programming is finalized. So it is key that our administration does not have the final say, our librarian does not have the final say. Teens really are going to be our key decision makers, and we will continue to take on the role of advocate and kind of helper completer. So we do not have to reinvent the wheel here. We're going to look to Princeton Public Library in New Jersey as a model for what we kind of want to do with our Teen Advisory Board. Their Teen Advisory Board proposes, develops, and leads, very important, diverse and youth-centered programs. So they have led the charge on, even though attendance is not the thing we're most concerned about, but these are very well-attended events, they've done an a cappella night for teens, issue-based workshops, and that issue changes depending on what's really important to them in their community. This was cute. Not your average movie night where people who knit get together and watch a movie while they knit. And so it's overall a platform for teen voice, leadership, and an opportunity to connect with their peers, which is what we really want to see. And what our teens desperately need is that connection. And so, again, their librarian is an advocate for them, kind of documents what they accomplish so they can continue to justify their programming model. And they've had some really cool ideas come about and wonderful well-spoken programs. So what I'm arguing that we do today is that we shift from a teen advisory board to a teen leadership group. And I know you might be thinking, what's with the semantics? Well, it's very intentional. We want to clearly articulate that teens have an active and in-charge role. We spoke earlier, advisory tends to imply merely a suggestion. We're going to go from really structured programming that is driven by the library. We don't need rigid membership requirements. We're going to have a core group while encouraging more participation from even more voices. Sorry, my dog is distracting me. And we're going to integrate planning into the programming. So instead of having a separate weekly meeting, we're just going to have them show up early to the events, talk about what are we doing next week, advocating to make it happen, and then letting them run their wonderful programming so they don't have to make as many trips to visit us. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Bethany, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about some more of our programming shifts, how we can measure success, and to continue to dig into some of those myths about teen attendance in our programs. Thank you so much.
So, continuing with programming, as we move away from a story time model and something more teen centered that is flexible for their needs, we're going to need to change the way we measure success. Programs like book clubs and the teens who are passionate about them may change from month to month, from year to year, if the teens are even interested in those kinds of programs at all. So, successful teen programming has to be adaptable, and we cannot measure success by how often teens are showing up to pre-scheduled regular events, right? Like story time. So our library does in fact have teens who are taking part in the things that we offer, but we are not measuring them in the right ways. As teen service librarians, we have been remiss in our advocacy for our user group, and we can change this going forward. As recommended by Jennifer Velasquez, Teen Services Librarian at the Austin Public Library and the Professor of Young Adult Programming and Services at San Jose State, teen service librarians should be documenting any kind of activity that they do with teens to show that what we're doing has value and that teens are, in fact, taking part in what we offer. We can document attendance to teen advisory board meeting, even if there is no formal membership, right? We can be taking photographs of spontaneous and passive programming that's happening around the teen space. Additionally, when we have conversations with any teens that help inspire next week's programming, as we should be doing, we can record that as well. Participatory design in the space is also a measure of success, right? When we see the work that the teens are doing in the space to make it their own, that is evidence that they are here. Ultimately, our goal, unlike Storytime with Children's Services, is to help teens develop their skills fundamental to their growth as members in their community. Um, this is really what we are hoping to measure, right? Are they contributing to the space? Are they taking part uh, in the passive programs? Are they using the neutral meeting space for their own purposes? Are they collaborating, communicating? Are they building skills of leadership? Are they communicating ownership of the space? Um, Jenkins 2009 talks about new literacies, right? These are things that really teens are going to understand in some ways better than we can sometimes what they are learning in relation to technology. And they can only really get that through interacting with each other. And it's our job to facilitate that in our library spaces. And so, really, that's what we're looking to measure. It's not the same as what we would measure in a storytime program. So, really quickly, let's review some of those best practices with programming, and then we're going to look at a few examples of libraries that are doing it really well. So, ideas for programming should be generated by the teens. They're not recommendations, they're what we're going to do. Programming is activated in the teen spaces. This will increase a sense of ownership and get teens coming back to our space. Programming needs to be flexible to meet teen schedule. That means again, going away from the story time model, something that can happen as they are arriving spontaneously, flexibly, adapting to what they need when they need it. And that can mean like having things in the library for them to grab, or, librarians facilitating on the spot programs as able. And then finally, and you'll see this as the recurring theme in the libraries we're going to look at, a dedicated teen services librarian is used to facilitate this, right? Good teen programming does not happen without a committed teen services librarian. Okay, first step is the Teen Loft at the Evanston Public Library in Illinois. My friend happens to be the teen services librarian there. They have a dedicated teen space. They have passive programming, things that kids can take and make, things that are just around, like the button maker, the perler beads, and Legos. They're not on a specific schedule. They are there for teens to take advantage of. And of course, there is one fabulous and dedicated teen services librarian that can activate the space and respond to what the teens actually want as they request it. Another example, we have the Fullerton Library in California. They have a teen advisory board. The teen advisory board meetings follow a regularly scheduled Tuesday programming, so taking advantage of the teens that may happen to be in the library. The tab is informal, it does not require official membership. So, again, taking advantage of the teens that happen to be on the scene. They have a dedicated teen area. I like that their collection also has broken their collection into junior high and young adult. So taking advantage of, I don't know how many teens actually say junior high for like to refer to middle school. Maybe in that area they do, but it is nice that those books, like again, acknowledging this distinct user group is really what's best for the people that are coming into our library, right? They deserve to be seen. They have their own unique needs, and that is what we are advocating here for, right? These groups have special things that we need to supply them with if we're going to fulfill our mandate as librarians. And we have here a third example of the Midland County Public Library. This is their youth services calendar that they put out last year for August. And here you can see that they call it a teen leadership board in lieu of a teen advisory board. They also have their separate teen area. As you can see from the photograph, they also have great seating. It's modular. Their services are not limited to membership. Memberships are free. And of course, you should recognize the theme here. They have a dedicated teen services librarian to make this programming work. If we get rid of teen services program and combine it with a youth services model, we are not going to be able to meet these teens' needs. So, the why of teen programming. What is the purpose of it, and why is it incredibly important that we do not get rid of teen programming and combine it with youth services? Well, for starters, there's the idea of the third place, right? Away from school, away from work, away from home, there is a neutral space that teens get to gather in. Libraries are often called the third place, so we already know how valuable that is. Teens have specific developmental requirements that best practices show deserves to be set apart from other groups, right? They are their own unique user group. They deserve to be recognized as part of the community by being given this separate space. Next, process over product. Like, what are we hoping that they get out of this? What is the experience that we want teens to have? We want them to have membership in their local community, right? By being recognized as part of the community, by giving the separate space, they're going to participate in it more. They're going to learn citizenship skills, collaboration, leadership, communication. These are all things that we are hoping that they will gain by making the space their own as they transition into adulthood, right? Even over information, even over collection development. These are the things that are the most valuable assets we can give teens in just by giving them this space. And responding to their needs. There's also the idea of new literacies, right? Again, outside of school, outside of home. This is something that teens can teach each other by interacting with each other, often involving technology. And so we're giving them the space and ability to take advantage of that. Finally, the budget justification. So teens are a distinct user group that the library should value, right? If the library's mission is to serve distinct user groups, then this justification is self-evident. Teen service librarians make everything we have described in this presentation possible. Without teen services, without teen services librarians, there is no way to measure how we are reaching teens, right? And then ultimately, Teen Services continues to pay dividends when they become adults and keep coming back to the library, the same way that Excellent Children's Services pays dividends when the teens come back, right? So we want to make sure that we are creating like a connection between all of these user groups, right? We want to have this holistic vision for how we are preparing our services for each unique group, right, as they continue to grow up, right? We're responding to their needs, and that's part of our mission as librarians. All right, just to address some of the arguments against teen services that our administration has brought up directly, teens are too busy. Yes, teens have greater choice in how they spend their time. We need to make our experience more appealing to teens. That's what that means. Teens are overscheduled. That means that we are not making our services and programs relevant or competitive to what teens need, right? And that is our purpose as librarians, right? We are supposed to be meeting their needs. This is more evidence that we need to change something rather than just get rid of the services entirely. Teens have school extracurriculars. This is an opportunity to partner with schools. We can host those extracurriculars, right? This is, again, not a sign that something is wrong. This is an opportunity. Teens have everything they need at home. So are we saying that we are irrelevant? Are we saying that we have nothing to offer teens? I do not think that that's true. It's dismissive of teens for whom that is not true, right? That's purposefully prejudiced against the teens who do need the things that we offer. And then beyond materials, we're really hoping to develop skills. And that, of course, is harder to measure, but who better than the teen services librarian to do that for us? So, in short, all of the things that administration has indicated are a problem are actually a sign that we need to change something, try something new, and not defund the program. We would not eliminate programs for seniors, children, or adults using the same justification, right? It's time to change our thinking about teens and employ research and experience backed strategies to better serve our constituents. Teen services and dedicated teen service librarians are equipped and positioned to implement the strategic changes that we have outlined in this presentation.